Well, actually, just to make the vibe here like a little bit looser, I thought I would share a cool thing with you. Do you know how your name would be in Hungarian?
Let's hear it.
It would be Leonidas Sándor.
Leonidas Shandor.
Oh, that was a very respectable pronunciation, I have to say.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so because Leonidas is Leonidas. That's just how we say it, and then
Well, you're saying it the
Al
right way.
Alexander, that's your like full name,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah. So
Yes.
that's Shandor. So Alexander
Shandor.
the Great is not Shandor, for example. Um, but so yeah. So first of all, you have a really cool name. Do you like? I don't know if you talked about it, but how come that you have such a cool name? Like, I'm assuming you have Greek roots.
Well, yeah. So I've done ancestry tests and I'm exactly 50-50 Greek and Italian, like direct.
Whoa, what a combo!
And yeah. And I guess I come from Spartans or they stole the last name. That's possible as well. But you can see it on the map. It goes back 500 years, all the many points. And on the Greek side, they immigrated to New York, and then they came here to Montreal. And on my Italian side, first generation of Italians in like the late 1800s, you know?
Yeah,
So they just intermingle after that point, and here I am, Alexander. And I think it's a pretty badass name. I guess it's the combination of
it's a
Alexander
very
the Great and then the Spartan King. So they
yeah.
wanted me to be a warrior from day one, my parents.
Yeah, I mean, especially for the fitness industry. So I'm gonna ask a very cringy question, but do you think that your name, like the fact that it sounds the way it sounds, influence your identity in any way?
Ooh, I think so because I've always seen myself as a warrior, and it kind
Mm.
of plays into your ego. Not that I watched the 300 movie when I was young, but I always knew that I was a Spartan of some sorts, a modern day version. And, you know, Alexander the Great, everyone told me I was great. So it's a little brainwashing that you hear as a child. But the thing is, I was afraid of using my name, at least the first one, Alexander, because I thought it was too long for people to handle with the short attention spans, you know? So I just brought it down to Alex and then
Yeah.
didn't use my last name due to privacy reasons.
Hmm.
You know, I was quite young when I started the YouTube channel, but eventually just decided to be myself. And I should have started sooner because people love the name and I could just be me.
Yeah. I mean, with a name like that, you definitely could have, because I mean, it sounds so Alphadestiny is a cool name, but Alex Leonidas sounds just as cool. So you totally could
Yeah,
have.
it also sounds like a fake name, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I was honestly not sure that that was like, is this like an artist name or is
birth
this actually? But yeah,
birth name. Yeah, that's what it says on my certificate.
damn. Um, and so what was I going to ask? Something about the name. So a couple of ways I could go now with the next thing. Oh yeah, no, I just wanted to comment on that. That's funny because for me it was sort of the other way around. So like I use my name from the get-go, and like now I have like a bit of a YouTube name, but still like everybody knows what I'm called. And I sort of had the thought like now later on that like, ah man, like sometimes I do wish that I didn't share like who I am on the channel
Oh yeah.
and just like hid behind the name. Whereas for you, it kind of went the other way around. Like now you came
Yeah.
clean.
The thing is people like authenticity. And we're starting to see that with the rise of certain influencers who they came out with just their name. And there's no marketing behind the company. It's just you're representing yourself. And ultimately it's about having that connection because it's similar to a TV show. You think that you're friends with the person you're watching. You get close, you learn about their life, and it's the opening up process and seeing that we're all just gym bros who are interested in the same things, and this is what it is, and we're just trying to elevate one another.
Yeah.
You know, having that name associated with it is good, if you ask me, and I can certainly see the difference. Like, you know, although I was Alphadestiny for a long time, I was still Alex, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine if I wasn't Alex, I was just Alpha. It's kind of weird, you know, especially when there's like preconceived notions about certain terms. So if you're just yourself, well, you're not going to offend anyone. Not that you should worry about that, but you're just being
Yeah.
you, and it works.
Yeah, I think especially now with the rise of AI and it becoming as good as it's becoming, like some of the stuff
Oh
that
yeah,
we can do now with free tools is scary how good it is already. Um, and I think like I don't know if you ever think about this, but I thought about it a couple of times. Like, man, like in a couple of years, like will everything that we do become like completely obsolete? Because like
mm.
information just in general is gonna become something so like low value. It will be so easily
Yeah,
accessible.
but it's more than information. It's like I said, the interpersonal connection. You can't get
So
that
yeah,
from an AI.
exactly.
They can try to, unless they get to that level where it's really indistinguishable. But there's a storytelling element when it's coming from a person, like the tone, the way you speak, the way you express yourself, your body
Yeah,
language. You know, you can put an AI person who's a bodybuilder, but you know it's not real. And it's
yeah.
not the same. Like, for example, there's AI coaching programs that will do a phenomenal job. They will get you to the podium,
Hmm.
guaranteed. But how many people are using those systems? Even though they've gotten pretty good right now, they still want a traditional coach where I'm investing in you. We're sending back footage and exchanging DMs
Yeah.
because there's just something valuable about it. And even one-on-one coaching, that's like the ultimate form. So I think you can argue that what we do will become somewhat obsolete if it's purely informative. Like we can go on ChatGPT right now and get some info, but I think people want more than info. Like they're subscribing to
Yes.
Abel, they're subscribing to Alex Leonidas. They want us, and they want to, build a community.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's yeah, so exactly that some things will be replaceable, but I think that fucking headphones are gonna die with the battery. Um so they will appreciate even more like that genuine connection that they can have with someone. Like if you have a coach, like yeah, an AI coach, just with the training and like setting up the macros or whatever, could do a good enough job at this point already. But like you competed. I don't know if you did it solo completely or you had someone over
100% solo.
100% solo. Well, then you're not the best example. But like, well, when I've gotten the leanest, I've done it solo as well. Although I don't know if you had that. I did have some people that I kind of just communicated with, shared some of the stuff that's going on, and not necessarily
That's the
asking for
thing.
advice, but feedback.
You know what it is, Abel. We can say that we did it by ourselves, but in reality, we didn't because there's
Yeah,
always a
yeah.
source that guided us. Like in my case, I read Dr. Lane Norton's book, cover to
Mm-hmm.
cover, and I even bought a posing course. So, I didn't just randomly copy what guys were doing on stage. I actually had to learn from the best. And then you have some friends that compete and they share a little bit of insight. They're not coaching you, but they're giving you some tidbits based off their experience. And it's the
Yeah.
same with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we like to believe we're self-made, but there's always someone else that had an impact. We got to give
Yeah.
credit where credit's due.
Oh yeah. 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 Okay, so I will want to talk about the competing a little bit later, actually, or
Sure.
at least the dieting process. I want to just go back in time a little bit because so I have seen what you've done. Actually, like the first like long form stuff that I watched with you was with Jeff Nippard, the how to
Wow.
like
Bear
uh
mode.
yeah, how to bear mode. That was the title of the video. And I remember I just downloaded it. Didn't have YouTube Premium yet, so I just downloaded it on my phone. I still remember the route I was walking while listening to it, and I really liked it actually. I also liked it how like you sort of influenced him on that call, and then like he kind of went for it afterwards. It was fun to observe. And I sort of like saw videos of yours popping up. Like I think I was subscribed to you at the time already, but I'm not completely familiar with like how that got started for you. So I know that like you're not so much into that sort of like you talk about different things now, but how did that come about? Because it was a pretty original thing. It also kind of came at a time when that was not the trendy thing to talk about. It was like more so about like how to get lean, lean, lean,
Yeah.
and then you came up with that. thing or came out with that thing.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that time because it was certainly unique. And it's funny
Hmm.
how things get popular during opposite times, if you will. So even now,
Hmm.
with the rise of certain influencers, it's about being raw, being real, less cuts, less edits.
Yeah.
I never thought it would go back to this, but there's always a pendulum when it comes to training and content creation.
Yeah.
So back in the day, I mean, I've always been doing my own thing. I've been unconventional from day one. In 2013, I was talking about full body workouts. In 2014, the conjugate system, and conjugate was just falling off. Guys were talking about linear periodization, and raw powerlifting was starting to boom. So I've always done things opposite, not because I'm intentionally trying to be a rebel, but that's just how I am. If I vibe with something, I'm going to talk about it regardless of what's going on, right?
Hmm.
And that was the case with the whole bear mode ideology. There's many stories I could share regarding how I got to that point, but I've always followed channels that were smaller because I felt they gave the best advice. And there were guys back in the day that were talking about how to build your neck and traps. I'm not the first one to do it. And the prime example was Mike the Machine Bruce, who did a 1,500-pound rack pull above the knee. This exercise was called the hand and thigh lift. There was actually a book written on this subject as well called Rock, Iron, Steel, I believe, by Steve Justa. So, I was talking about the partial overloads to, induce a crazy way to stretch. And then there was Megan of Team 3D Alpha talking about the farmer walks using some Indian guy who used to walk up and down mountains with buckets in his hand. So I kind of combined all those concepts into a new philosophy, and I mix it in with the conjugate stuff in the sense that I was rotating movements, right? So it wasn't for powerlifting purposes, but I was rotating the yoke exercises, right?
Hmm.
And using accommodating resistance to add even more weight and more stretch and make the top joint angles even harder. So I know this sounds like a big word salad here, but all these sources combined into one got me thinking about how do you make a system that develops the outer extremities of the body. And the neck and traps, that was very easy to do based off what I just told you. But then there was also the forearms, right? And arm wrestling wasn't popular at the time, but I was watching these weird videos. Guys were filming off their webcams, but they were bringing these poor quality cell phones to the gym, and they were doing these weird movements, with towels and preacher curls and partial reps. So all I've done is I took the best of every category and then fused it into a system that works the neck, traps, upper back, shoulders, forearms, and then glutes. And the reasoning behind the glutes was looking at old school bodybuilders, they didn't have uh, what we now call the X taper. They had the V taper. So their physique would go like this, right? Nowadays, it's the
Hmm.
opposite. You want like that X frame. And I realized that if you build up your glutes, it won't hurt your V taper. So from the front, you can have well developed quads, let's say 25 to 27 inches, but then the glutes could be 40 to 45. And it would have no impact, on your classic aesthetics. So that was another aspect to it. And then the final thing I noticed was body fat. Guys who were natural and looked the biggest were always fluffier. Uh, I, when you're shredded, it's simply an illusion. You take your clothes off, you look amazing, especially in front of a camera with down lighting and a nice pump. You look way bigger than you actually are. But in real life, you look tiny as hell in clothes. Like you don't
Hmm.
even lift. So it's like your clothes are a tent. And
Yeah.
therefore, if you want to look massive without flexing, because ultimately we wear clothes and we're not constantly in a tense state, the only way to do that is by being around 15 to 20% body fat. Because if you're 6 to 10, you're not going to look as big.
Yeah.
It's not happening. You'd be two shirt sizes down. And that
Yeah.
does make a big difference. And then to not look like a fat ass, you have to have some sort of facial hair to cover the chub. So if you build all the outer extremities of the body, you up your body fat percentage, and then you grow up your beard. Now you look leaner and bigger than you actually are. So
Yeah.
all that was going through my head, and that's what led me to create the naturally enhanced system and just start talking about it in my infamous yoke playlist, which got a lot of hate, but also a lot of love. And looking back, some of those concepts were ahead of its time, especially as we're learning more about stretch media hypertrophy and the length position, you know? So,
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Like you were kind of ahead of your time or ahead of the times with some of this. Because yeah, like now what the things that you said about the way they stretch and everything, like now like these are like evidence-based concepts, not
yeah,
some like naturally enhanced guy like
that's
being
right.
goofy on YouTube, right?
And I called it out. I said that one day the science will catch up to what I'm saying. And there were studies that were starting to emerge on the cats. And then there was the infamous one on the birds, right? But that was a hyperplasia study. So we can't confirm that in humans. But I always knew there was something to the stretch, specifically for back training. And I think now I know why.
Hmm.
Most back movements have a poor resistance curve in the sense that it emphasizes the shortened position. So you never really get to fully work that bottom position. Uh, and with the stretch overload training that I was doing, yes, there was a lot of cheat reps, a lot of momentum, and a lot of partial reps. But where were the partials? In that bottom range, you know?
Yeah.
So although you can say the stimulus to fatigue ratio was not the best for a lot of what I did, absolutely, it was creating unnecessary muscle damage. The fact is, the length of position was being maximized. Like my back was stretched to the max, and I got yoked as hell in the process, and so did thousands of my followers. So I
Yeah.
knew it worked, and people thought I was crazy, and yeah, I am crazy, you know, but goddamn, like science caught up, and this is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so okay, that's very cool, and a couple of things that brought to mind. First of all, like you have an amazing back. Like I remember there was this video where
Thank
you
you.
did the landmine row. Was it right? Like
The T-bar row.
T-bar row. Yes, landmine row. Jesus. And yeah, I remember like there you like shot some like close-ups of your back, and I was like, I even like sent it to like Dave and a couple of these guys. Like, Jesus
Oh
Christ,
yeah.
dude, look at this. Um, so do you think that like first of all, like have you done these like high stretch component lifts them from the get-go more or less? And like or are there certain lifts that you dedicate your back growth to in particular? Do you have like really good erectors, good lats? Um, so yeah, like what would those be?
Well, I'll start by saying I built a lot of my yoke during 2016 and 2017, where I was doing those overloads, and especially my traps during that time. What I noticed is that they never shrank after. Uh,
Oops, now your
the
audio went
traps are
away. Now it's back. I don't know what
sorry.
happened. You
Yeah,
went cut out for like 3 seconds.
that's all right. What I was saying is my traps are incapable of shrinking. And I have to credit the weighted stretching with over 1,000 pounds. Work I did with 800 plus. I mean, that was the most effective thing I ever did. And I think because I was so young and resilient, I got away with it in the sense that there were no injuries, just high as hell stimulus, and I had all the free time in the world to just recover and not worry about the axial loading so much. So that was an investment that I did. So for the yoke development, upper chest specifically, it was those damn rack pulls and the cheat rows and the power shrugs. There's nothing comparable to going heavy like that and just stretching it out to the max. But that's just one aspect of the back, right? Believe it or not, my spinal erector is, and the reason is that I was doing all these partials from the top, right? I wasn't bending over as much as I should have. And I was doing sumo deadlifts as opposed to conventional because of my build, right? I have a hard time getting deep because of recovery problems. So what I needed was a movement that had a good stimulus for, and in 2019, that's when I really started to develop my erectors with the good morning exercise because it allowed me to get the same stimulus as a conventional deadlift or an RDL, at least for the lower body and the erectors, with a fraction of the load. And I took it from 95 pounds all the way to 315 for 10. And even last year at 275 for 10, my erectors were really thick. So that's been the number one exercise. I think everybody should do it. You know, and if they have pain, just start with an empty bar, 45 pounds, and microload your way up. It's just the carryover is very high to RDLs.
Mm.
You don't need that much weight, and it gives you an instantly strong deadlift. Like for me, if I maintain a 440 squat, 100 on any day, zero specificity, even if I haven't done the movement in well over a year, it's just the strength is strength, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for the erectors, good mornings, good mornings, good mornings. Not all the partial stuff, right? And then for the lats, way to pull a specialization, but not just one grip. Have these multi grips, right? The close neutral, the medium neutral, uh, pronated, wide, super wide, all the way out to the sides, ring chins, ring pull ups, archer style. You can even grab in front of the bar instead of the one that's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Sorry, the back one. Basically, you got to get strong at all the grips.
Mm-hmm.
It's for 1 rep max. So 180 pounds hanging off my waist. That's what blew up my back. The lats in particular. And then, you know, the cheat rows. I mean, when people talk about upper back thickness, what they're really referring to is the traps. Usually the mid to low. Then there's the teres major and the rhomboids, but I don't think you have to cheat on your rows, to be honest with you, but definitely don't have a weak row. And I find that by doing them at the end of the workout, you can handle the bent over version without having any lower back fatigue because the weight is comparatively lighter. You're already smashed. Or in general, you don't have to lift that heavy. You can focus on pristine tech. And the trick with that is getting the stretch at the bottom
Mm.
and not jerking all over the place, which will get a similar stimulus for the back, but you got to use like 225, 215. Like you don't have to do that.
Right, right. Uh, by the way, so occasionally you cut out for like a second or two. Like it's like talking, and
Really.
then you keep talking, and I can hear you again. Okay, I'm gonna turn this off in the meantime because
Mm.
um. So can you say something just to see if I'm hearing you still? Just because I plugged out my.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm talking right now.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Um. So I don't know if that's a connection thing or an audio thing. But hope
Oh,
hopefully it won't be like
pisses
that
me
anymore.
off, man. Because I got
Yeah.
everything set up here and there's issues, Like I've never had this before. This is the first time.
Well, in this case, it might not be on. It might be just a connection thing, and that's why the audio cuts. But then the picture is so clear. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's anyway. I hope we will see if it's hearable on the back end.
Yeah. But those are the things that the 2 years of yoke specialization and then the weighted pull up specialization from that point all the way till now. And then what I've been doing recently for my yoke is the chest expander. That's the only thing I do now. Nothing else. I don't do rear delt flies. I barely do lateral raises. I don't do face pulls. I don't do most stuff. And vertical pull aparts, and that's been the craziest thing ever
hmm,
for the whole yoke, rear delts and
yeah.
traps.
I heard you mentioning somewhere, I think on Dave's podcast, that you don't really do neck training. Or maybe you have been again, but at the time you said that you haven't done it in months. I see you shaking your head, so no, still not.
Yeah, it's the same. I have a problem, Abel. I'm very lazy with it, and that's always been an issue for me. You know, like I can recognize the benefits of neck training, and I'm the one who you can say made it popular alongside Jeff Nippard, but it doesn't change the fact that I don't really care about having the largest neck, even though I fully see that that's what you got to do to look massive. To me, I just don't care as much as much as I should. So that's my
Mm,
own fault. Uh, I found that the back of the neck can grow just fine if you're doing a lot of barbell squats, especially with the SSB, or if you're doing good mornings. But the front of the neck, I found that for my genetics, I can't get it big if I don't isolate it. It's not possible. Even if I'm in a calorie surplus and I'm training my traps to the max, my neck will plateau at like 17 inches. It won't go past that point. But the moment I start isolating, I'll gain an inch or two. And it
mm,
doesn't take long. And my strength will also double. So, that's the state of affairs. But I do plan on training hard again soon, especially as I lose body fat, because when you're shredded and you have a smaller neck, it looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I want to
Can,
avoid that for next time.
can you tell me how am I doing neck wise? Should I be isolating it? How do I hold it?
I would isolate it, to be honest. But the thing is, you have a very masculine face and a good structure down here, so it's not really as
Oh,
important for you.
oh, thanks. So because I don't even know, like if you look at yourself in the mirror, like are you as thick in the neck as in the like in the jaw area, or is it even thicker at this point?
Is my jaw thicker? Is that what you're
No, no, no.
asking?
Like so, like like if so, obviously, what you want to avoid, like what everybody wants to avoid, is like
Oh
having the
yeah,
stick and then like the big bowl on top.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, for you,
So
like
look,
it's in one line, or
as long as it's somewhat even with the jaw, then you're good. But if
Mhm.
you want to look massive, you got to get it past that point so that you have this effect going on, because
Right?
that's what it is in the anime shows. And that was also a big inspiration for me. You watch a lot of Baki. Look how wide those damn necks are, or look at the
Mhm.
wrestlers. They don't have it just even. Like even is a masculine look for sure.
Yeah,
And it's you can't say you have a pencil neck if you have that going on. It's really if you're narrower than the jaw, or worst case being even with the chin. Now you're really screwed. you
yeah,
know. So as long as you're somewhat level with the cheeks, I would say you're okay. And obviously having the traps really helps as well. So that you can kind of get away with not having the thickest neck imaginable if you got some elevation going on here.
yeah, yeah. No, it's and volume wise, and I guess like this could be applying to the whole like naturally enhanced thing that you used to run. Are we talking like moderate volumes, lower volumes, higher volumes? Like let's say sets
So
per week.
so I always did neck flexion, neck extension, and then the side work, right? And I would do 4 sets of 25 for everything, except for the side work. I would do like 3 sets of 33.
Mm,
And I did that 2 to 4 times a week, depending how I felt. So the volume I would say was pretty high, and so were the reps. But looking back, because I preached that philosophy for a very long time, there's a lot of things I would do differently now. And
mm,
in general, that goes to the topic of volume. I don't think you need to do that many reps and that many sets for neck. I think if you did 1 to 2 sets per
mm,
movement twice a week to failure with controlled form, you get the same results as what I was doing back then, with
mm.
probably less neck strains, consistent form, and it would just be better. Less chance of injury as well.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think about volume in general? As you know, it's always a hot topic amongst like the cerebral
Yeah.
part of the fitness industry. Are you like a more moderate volume guy then?
It's changed over the years. So I used to be a high volume guy, then it went kind of moderate, and I would only approach higher volumes when I was peaking, you know, or like kind of like RP style. But then it changed. Now I'm a low volume guy.
Hmm.
So I usually do 2 sets per exercise. I haven't done 3 sets in probably a year. And you know what? I regret not doing this sooner. I feel like a lot of us have been scammed, and that a lot of naturals don't train hard. Because
Oh.
even I thought I trained hard up until recently, but I didn't. Even I was making a mistake with the reps in reserve, despite already benching 4 or 5 and being elite. I didn't train as hard as I thought I did, because now I do a fraction of the volume, and I'm getting the same, if not better, results. I've hit some of my all-time best PRs this year at a lighter body weight, and my arms are bigger as well. So everything has improved with less volume. It took a long
That's
time to get to this point,
mhm.
but last year I was almost 200 pounds and my arms were 17. I got to 185 this year and my arms were 17.2. There was also a 10-pound body weight difference, right? I did at my last bulk 242 times 1 seated overhead press. This year I did 245 times 2 at like 181. So the 2 sets thing hasn't been hurting me at all. It's the way I'm going to continue training for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I love 2 sets, and I kind of feel similarly. So for a long time, it was actually 3 sets for me. Like there was just something about the 2 sets that I felt a little bit like the way I feel now about these like overly minimalistic like training
Yeah,
designs where it's like, dude, like, okay, get it that you're minimalistic, but do you really like, why can't you do like three lifts at least in your session? Does it have to be two? Like really? So I kind of felt
exactly.
like that about the two sets, but now I'm like you, I'm in love with it because I feel like perfect. Like one set, that's gonna be very high quality because I'm the freshest. But like maybe like I didn't get into the groove of it. Like there's a difference between getting into the groove while warming up versus like real sets. And then a
Mhm.
second set is gonna be perfect, like very high quality, still very fresh, and then that's it.
It
Um,
guarantees it. You can't mess it up.
yeah.
You know, like I would only do one set, to be perfectly honest with you, if I hit like failure, and then possibly beyond. So if I go crashing down on the pins, I literally have to hip thrust the weight off me. I'm gonna stop right there. But technically, a second set would probably still be good.
Yeah.
But it's that perfect balance because the benefit here is that we're doing more than one movement. Like you said, back then it was two compound movements, three sets, right? Which is six sets total. Okay, why not just subtract one set per exercise and add another exercise? This way, the volume is the exact same. If you went really hard on the first set, great, but at least you got a second one that's also going to be high quality, the highest quality, and you have a decent enough volume that you know for a fact was efficient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's been crazy.
Yeah. Do
I'm you
you,
know
sorry, go on.
no, I was just gonna say I'm repeating myself. I'm not going back to the three sets. I'm not. It's a waste of my time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously there are some benefits sometimes when I mean, so you're training still in your home like gym setup?
9 out of 10 times, yeah.
Right, right. So in a commercial gym, sometimes there is a benefit, like when it starts getting a bit busier, and then like let's say you got on some cool like
True.
rowing machine or something, you especially like some of them you load up with a bunch of plates, like that takes time. Like instead of like going to another similar exercise like later in the
Mhm.
session, like you could just like, okay, I'm here, might as well bang out a
You're
couple of
right.
sets.
There could
Um,
also be a fear of not pushing as hard due to social pressure,
mm,
or maybe the equipment you have is not safe enough for you to train with a high level of intensity. So maybe
yeah.
you're benching without safety pins, which I would never recommend. But let's say that's the only option you have, or they're there, but you're still concerned because you know that if you get pinned, you're gonna have to like sink and really drag it on you, or you don't have appropriate spotters, or maybe it's like you said, very packed, and instead of changing stations, you just modify your grip a bit. You know,
Hmm.
so say you do two sets of regular bench, well, maybe do one more with the Larson press with close grip. You know,
Yeah.
this way you don't have to move around so much. So that definitely works.
And so you do two sets per lift. Um, yeah, like maybe I don't know if you like you don't want to spill some beans or whatever. If so, then feel free to mention that. But like how does your training look like generally? Like how many days? Like do you follow some sort of structure that is the same every
Yeah.
week? And is that like some split, like a push pull legs or whatever? And like how many sets roughly per muscle group on average per week?
Yeah. So I follow my contest prep program because I
Oh, okay.
realize it's one of the most effective I've done up until now.
Hmm.
I've tried because I'm not the only one who trains with the two sets philosophy, right? There's a lot of great coaches who are recommending it now. And
Hmm.
for a while, I tried the Jordan Peters split, and it wasn't for me. I feel like you got to be really, really strong to need more than 96 hours between sessions. Like you got to be training your ass off with very like crazy absolute loads. I find that 72 hours between sessions is usually enough, 96 at the most, right? And I feel that you lose that continuity if there's too much time between muscle groups because the whole thing is you're trying to reduce muscular overlap, right? Like his
Yeah.
split would be, that between upper body days and leg days, there's 2 days off, right? So you know, I don't like that. So now it's like an upper lower and push pull hybrid.
Mm.
So and you can split that in many different ways. But the key is that because the thing with leg training is that it could affect your upper back training. Like if I do a Zercher squat or a front squat or an SSB squat or even RDLs, that's affecting my upper back to a certain extent
Yeah.
and the spinal rectors. If I try doing bent over rows the next day or even the day before, there's an interference effect. So you have to account for overlap, and that determines in which order you're going to pair it or how many days off you need between those, right? So I try to minimize overlap to a certain extent, but sometimes it's unavoidable. And if you have a little bit of soreness coming in, it's still fine. But essentially, it's upper, lower, and push-pull legs combined. During my contest prep, there was the push-pull legs, like the leg day was replaced with an arm day, you know? Sorry, it was push-pull legs off, upper arms off, repeat.
Okay.
Now it's the same thing, but without the arm day, because I find that I don't need it, So, and in terms of volume, every muscle is hit twice a week, except for legs, because I don't care about having tree trunks. If my legs are 26 inches, I'm happy. I don't want them to be 28 because I'm only 5'5", and I've had them at 27 before, and I found they were too big. It makes you look stumpier and shorter. I want my physique to be elongated, and I don't want that X frame that I was telling you about before.
Right.
So if anything, I should be going a lot harder on my calves. That would be a legit goal, but not getting bigger quads. And my ass is big enough already from all the hip hinges I do. So that's why I train legs once a week. I don't really have any significant goals, but everything else is twice a week. And for that, like I said, it's 3 compound movements per major muscle, always 2 sets, and usually 2 isolations per workout. Sometimes 3, but I'll only do 1 set if it's a third, right? And it's usually a rejuvenation movement that's very easy on recovery, but which would essentially equate to 4 to 5 sets of isolations and 6 sets of compounds per workout. That means that you would do a maximum of 12 sets a week per major muscle. So they say that the optimal hypertrophy range is 10 to 20.
Yeah.
Well, I'm at 12. I'm not below 10. I'm not close to 20. I'm on the lower end, but it's still, it's reasonable, I feel. So I'm not
That's very reasonable.
It's not heavy duty training, but that doesn't mean that for some movements I won't do 1 set to failure, but I feel like this gives you the best of everything, and you don't have to push like everything beyond on all the sets, so you have a little bit room for fatigue management.
Right. Do you so then let's say an upper body day could look something like bench press, some like overhead pressing variant, some other chest movement, and then like 2 tricep movements, something like that. Like that would be like a push day.
That's exactly how it plays out. And so my push day 99% of the time is a bench press variation, followed by an overhead pressing variation.
Ooh,
and then I use my chest crusher, which is another chest, right? And for that, I'm doing it for the squeeze. And it also hits the triceps too, because your arms are bent. So those are the 3 compounds I do, right? Yeah. And then I'll always do an extension as my an extension and a push down. And the order depends how I feel that day. If my elbows are like rock solid, I might start with the extension just so I can go a bit heavier. If I feel a little bit achy or I want to get nicely warmed up, I'll do the push down. But usually it's best to start with a push down. And what you do is every session you change your movements a little bit. So going back to the push downs, your A day could be a dual rope for more long head, and because you're better lined up for the elbows. And then your B day could be a V-bar push down. And then, day 1 could be an SSB JM press, and day 2 could be a dumbbell extension or a sideways extension with the chest expander. For the presses, same thing. Day 1 could be a flat bench. Day 2 could be an incline bench. And then the overhead press, it could be 1 day standing, 1 day seated, or 1 day with dumbbells, 1 day with a barbell. It's so simple, like a monkey could figure it out. And then it's just 2 sets for all the exercises.
Right.
Then the pull day, I usually do 2 vertical pulls, 1 horizontal, just because I feel like I'm thick enough. And also the chest expander covers my needs such that I don't need to do another row. So I'd rather get wider than thicker at this point. you know. And
Right.
then one bicep, one tricep, it could be a short and a lengthened, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'll tell you legs as well.
Oh
Legs
yeah.
is always
Who cares about
barbell
legs,
backs.
man? No, I'm kidding. No, no,
Now, because legs is only once a week, the volume is going to be a little bit higher here, right? So it's always going to be a barbell back squat variation of some kind,
no.
either alternating between uh, just a regular high bar, SSB squat, or a front squat variant of some kind. Actually, with the harness I've been using recently, that's exercise number one. The second is going to be a good morning. And the third exercise is a belt squat. So now I get to traction the whole spine and get a little bit more volume in for the entire lower body, but especially the quads in case the barbell squat wasn't optimal for that. And then I'll do either a sissy squat, a leg extension. You can even do a mechanical drop set with those, followed by a leg curl and then reverse hyperextension. So you get even more spinal rectors and glutes. And that's done once a week. And then the upper day is, kind of combining the pushing and the pulling, just either with antagonist supersets. This way you're more efficient. It's probably the hardest day of the week. But the benefit of that is after the upper day, the next 72 hours, like you don't have to spend as many days in the gym to get the same muscle protein synthesis. You get the same volume, and your recovery is optimized.
Hmm.
Because if I do push pull legs, right, and then I repeat that, it's possible that because of all the overlap that's going on, either the leg or the back day is going to cause an interference. But if I do upper on Monday and then Thursday I do push, there's going to be no problems recovery wise. And then on Friday, if I hit my back, uh, there's no issue because I did an upper body day on Monday. So I always try to think in those terms, not to be too confusing. Because also on Tuesday, you trained your legs. So that means if I want my back to be fully fresh, I have to train it on Friday. If I do it on Thursday, there's a chance that it might not be. So that's what I'm saying with the 72 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I I sometimes joke that like never put me down in front of a spreadsheet because like I'm gonna just start making up like little training splits and then I'm
Yeah,
gonna be sitting there for three
it get
hours.
complex.
Yeah, because I always notice something that is just suboptimal in terms of like the ordering of things and what overlaps with what. So for example, like I think the split sounds great, but I know that like I would have some OCD going on that I'm putting overhead press and then like these horizontal presses on the same day because like I would
Oh
care
yeah.
about both of those. And I'm like, but man, like wouldn't my overhead pressing would have an even better output if I had put it on a separate day, you know? So that's why I
Mm,
fiddle around so much with these. So this is not a concern for you at all, for example, then.
no, I don't care because also the overhead press has a good stimulus to fatigue ratio. And I find that it feeds into my bench. A lot of guys disagree with that statement, but I find that if you're not a super wide grip bencher with an immense arch, because I'm a close to medium kind of guy, and a lot of times I'll do close. Well, in that case, the overhead press is beneficial. And at the end of the day, we're looking at it in a bodybuilding context, right? Yeah, it's not an overhead press day for specialization. It's just, you know, and a lot of people do have lagging delts, and I feel like a compound movement like that could be quite effective. And I don't see the problem in doing it after your bench. You're still getting enough volume for the chest and the shoulders.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean for sure. Have you ever experimented with like higher frequency setups where you're hitting something more frequently?
Yeah, and I find that it doesn't work for me. I always have recovery problems. Uh, the best frequency is twice a week. I've tried three; it's hit or miss. Sometimes you have a good session, other times like it's definitely doable. At the end of the day, it's about load and fatigue management. But before I started with the twice a week, it was actually every other day, or I would give some leeway. So, you know, it was 48 to 72 hours between sessions, full body, which means that it can be very inconsistent. Either you're training twice a week or four times a week. But
Hmm.
if everything's going well, you can quite literally be in the gym four times a week, full body, you know?
Yeah.
But I found that the gains weren't faster or better compared to doing half of that. And now we have some meta-analyses showing that it is about the net volume throughout the week, at least in a pure hypertrophy context. For a strength athlete, there might be some merit to higher frequency just because you can dial in that movement pattern with less fatigue, really develop that skill. But if you're just trying to get big and you're doing 12 sets split twice a week, I don't see what you're missing, especially with a high proximity to failure and good exercise selection. Like there's nothing more that I feel would benefit my major muscles than what I'm doing now. Otherwise, I would have done it.
Yeah, yeah. I would tend to agree. I've experimented with higher frequency stuff a lot, or not just experimented. I have done it a lot, and so on some movements or some muscle groups, I actually enjoyed it quite a lot. There were some interesting benefits, which I'm not even sure if that's a benefit. It's just something that happened, but I could spin that as a positive. Like my range of motion for pec movements, I just didn't need as much warm up. Like I had a very easy time like hitting depth with all the chest pressing stuff like from the get go. That might even be a negative for all I know, because like it could be that a bit of extra stiffness is good because then the stretch has a bigger impact on you.
True.
So that could even be. Um, but but yeah, like I sort of gravitated back to like more moderate kind of frequencies these days. So I would agree. I don't think you're missing out on anything. It might just be a logistical like convenience sort of thing for some people.
No, it's
Um, yeah,
preference and recovery.
yeah,
If you feel great doing it, awesome. But you know, I think a lot of people are wasting time in the gym or doing things that they think is better, but in reality, is producing the same result. So pick your training poison.
yeah. Now, when it comes to your arms that you managed to bring up so well, did you do any sort of like did you go very high volume, for example, or did you do anything like that?
No, two
No,
sets.
two
That's
sets.
it. That's what's done it. Just training my arms very hard, focusing on progression. I don't give a shit about the pump at all. I just want my numbers to go up on my curls, on my push downs, and my extensions. And I'll tell you what
Mm.
got me that 0.2 extra. It was taking my decline dumbbell extensions from 40 pounds to 60 pounds per hand. So adding 20 pounds that I lift gave me zero point 0.2 on my arms. And I know it's triceps because my biceps haven't really improved that much in terms of strength. So I added pure tissue on the back of my arm from that, and you can see it. So, and it shows in the compound strength as well, because it carries over when you focus on a weak link. So, yeah, you got to get
Damn,
stronger.
that's
Not necessarily that you're forcing strength. It's just you got to see progression over time.
so then it seems like if my math checks out, then you would have done like 4 sets or so for biceps and triceps each per week.
Per workout. Yes. No, that which would be 8 sets. So
Um,
yeah, technically, and the caveat actually could be that you're doing so. It's usually 2 isolation movements for biceps and triceps, but I could add a third if I want. But if I do, it's only going to be 1 set. And that's just to get an additional function or to help with elbow health, because I'm very prone to that being a problem. I'm prone to bicep tendonitis. I'm prone to my elbows feeling snappy. I
I
went through
saw
some.
that thing that you did in the video where it,
It's
whew,
it's a real problem, and I've had some problems over the last couple months. So I've had to be very careful of that. And so for those days, I will do as my final tricep movement a band push down.
mhm.
I'll do like 1 set of 50 reps. And for biceps, I might do 1 set of hammer curls just to introduce the workout. So you start with hammer curls, then you do 2 sets of a squeeze base curl, and then you do 2 sets of a lengthened curl. And that's basically all I do twice a week for both. And it's been amazing. And then the compound movements, I make sure that they're biased towards my triceps. And the best I've ever found is the reverse grip bench, because you cannot flare out your elbows even if you want to. You can't, and you're pressing away from the body, so you're locked in like this. You know, it's more of a triceps builder than anything else, and it hits some upper pec too. But I would say triceps above all.
Mm.
And weighted dips. I do close grip on my overhead pressing. So every compound is optimized for tries. And I'm trying to do the same thing with my biceps now. I'm trying to do everything supinated or everything on rings, you know. But
Right.
I would say the isolation strength improvements is what really did it.
Yeah. So then the 8 sets, like, is that in total or per
Total.
total? Oh, so wow, yeah. So that's yeah, like I can think of several people. Like if I told them like, okay, so we're gonna try to bring up those arms finally. Here's 4 sets of bicep work per week. They would flip out completely.
Well, look, Abel, I've been documenting everything since 2013, right? And I shit you not. Sorry about the swearing, by the way.
Oh no, feel free
Um,
to.
my arms were stuck at 16 inches for years, and I was probably doing 20 sets a week. They didn't grow at all. Literally, year after year, the same measurement at various body weights to top it off. It annoyed me so much.
Mm,
I got them to 16 and a half when I benched 4 or 5 for the first time. And that's probably because of all the accommodating resistance I did. And I just got so strong at, at some point, your strength on compounds can get so high that your arms have no choice but to grow, but it's incredibly inefficient, right?
yeah,
Uh, so then I gained that extra half inch by going more intense on the isolation work, actually treating it seriously. And then the last point two has been from the lowest volume yet,
mm,
half of what I'm used to. So I think that says a lot as an elite lifter who's shown everything. And this has been the most effective thing I've ever done for my arms. Cutting back the volume considerably and just going hard on the isolations. So I can't recommend it enough. And I
right.
stand by because I don't have good arm genetics. They are my most stubborn body part.
Oh
So
yeah, I can relate. Sorry, is it disrespectful if I take a piss real quickly? I
no, no, go ahead.
I was I was holding really heroically for a long time, but I'm about to explode. All right, one
Go,
sec.
go, go.
There are times when this is better than an orgasm.
I can relate to that. It's a release of big pressure.
Yeah, I just found out like last year or the year before, like one time I was finishing in a store and like I already needed to pee a lot. And then like finally I could make it to like a bush or something, but like I was really close to actually pissing myself.
Oh shit.
And then just recently I found out that there's a toilet that anybody can use in that store, like a public toilet. I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, seriously? Like this is why I went through hell? Like that was one of the
Mm.
most intense like 10 minutes of my life. But
Well, you just got to deny that there was ever a toilet there. It's a new thing.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, like yeah, the volume thing is interesting because it's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Like so I didn't come out on it as firmly as you did, let's say on some of the weighted stretching stuff back then. But I sort of have a feeling like I think science is gonna catch up to this one day because like
Well, sort of is
uh
with the new
well,
meta regression.
or the recent one with the failure thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I
not
mean, sort of,
perfect.
yeah.
It has some flaws due to estimation, and actually, Eric Helms made some good points about it. That it's not, it's not perfect, obviously, but it does say a lot, and it's certainly what we're seeing with some elite naturals who were plateaued for some time. But I think it will catch up. I don't think we need. I mean, quite put simply, you need more volume if you train with more reps in reserve with shorter rest intervals. That's simple. So pick how you want to train. Either you do higher intensity with less sets and higher proximity to failure, or you do moderate to high volume, but you're leaving reps in the tank. And then you know, so it goes back to like RP style versus JP style,
Yeah,
which, they both work.
yeah, yeah, and like I so before this meta regression, like in general, like what I consistently saw is that like volume is just overrepresented in all these studies. Like it really
Yeah.
seemed like it, and it the annoying thing was that like the people who were then presented these results and they were talking about like how volume is important, then what I actually saw in their practice is that they go through a lot of trouble to like really individualize how much volume people will do. And like almost none of them had clients that were on super, super high volume programs.
No.
Like some of them went through
And
like brief phases where they did, but they didn't keep up with that. So,
yeah, and a lot of the studies are done on noobs, which to me, I can never take seriously
mm,
because you can't take when you've been training for 10 years, that's a seasoned lifter. Or someone who's been training for 3 to 5 years. Someone who squats 225, you can't say in a study that that's an experienced lifter. You're not. You're not. That's like you've been training for 3 months if you have decent lower body genetics, but that's like less than a year of training. You can get a 225 squat 1 rep max. What the hell is that? And you want to say that you can that doing 50 sets of legs a week is what's going to do it? Yeah, I call BS because
yeah.
it's not what we see in the real world. It doesn't make sense. And there's also recovery demands as you get stronger. So that has to be factored in. And once we understand the mechanisms of hypertrophy, which we're getting a lot closer now. You know, a lot of the things we thought produce growth, they don't. Well, you know, the whole idea with mechanical tension being the primary driver and having less sets because of the effective reps theory being mostly valid, you know, that gets you thinking about what's right.
Mm,
So
yeah. Yeah. And I'm honestly just glad. So I know that there are limitations to this meta regression, but honestly, I was so glad when it came out because
yeah,
um and I'm totally happy with like not running with the results and saying that like you need to train to failure and like volume is not important, whatever. Like I don't want to do that at all. But it was seriously getting to the point where we supposedly had to start questioning whether training closer to failure even matters. Like
yeah,
6 reps away from failure or two, like same number of sets, equally effective. And like I
it's
was
not.
supposed to be like on board with that, and somehow I was a zealot if I wasn't.
That's
Like,
crazy.
yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, and
So
also even when they try to estimate what failure is, most of the time it's not. Yeah, they still got better results. And the thing is, it's a sliding scale. The closer you get to like real failure, it's even more effective. So your last rep is more effective than the one you did right before. You know, and some of the guys supervising a lot of these studies on volume, they don't even know what failure looks like because I mean, I can say a quote right now, and you probably know what it is. That's
yeah,
my failure. No,
yeah,
it's not. It's either failure or it's not. That's it. So until I see that, and I've seen a lot of guys say, "Oh, I train to failure and I do 20 plus sets a muscle," and I look at their workout videos, and what they are describing 9 out of 10 times is technical failure, and I can respect that. I really can. Great, I like that. But don't tell me it's muscular failure. Don't tell me that what I'm doing is incorrect and that volume is the driver of hypertrophy when it's clearly not. You
yeah,
know, so I think if we can just accept like there's this way to train and that way to train and they both work and these are the reasons why, that's the better way to teach. Not that this is superior over the other, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so Mike Israetel, that like you, I like him a lot. Um, and I may be getting some nasty messages again for saying this from some people, but um, he said it on a podcast recently. It was on the Revive Stronger podcast, I think, that like the people who say that people don't train hard in studies, like fuck, are you crazy? They train way harder than you. Like there are people yelling at them and whatever, like motivating them. Um, says who? But seriously, like like I respect Mike that he at least wants to think that okay, that's a bit disrespectful. Maybe in some studies where he was actually there, like overseeing what they did, maybe they actually did that. But um, like several of the people
Well,
that are the biggest like study publishers, like they're not even there, like overseeing. Like if you ask them
that's
how hard
yeah.
are they training, they wouldn't actually know. So,
Yeah, and the problem is you run into the impossible workout.
mm,
So you can't say that these people are training hard if they're doing a workout that I in a million years could never do. Put me in a room with those researchers. I will fail to complete the workout every single time. I
Oh
will
yeah.
bet my bank account. I will bet my YouTube channel. I can't do that much volume. I can't. It's impossible, physiologically impossible for everyone who's doing proper failure training to do that many sets. You can't. You fucking can't. So that's how I know it's nonsense. And
I
Jordan
thought you were
Peters
gonna
said the
say you
same
fucking
thing.
can't. Sorry, that was amateur.
You know,
Well,
no, no. But hey, but all love to Dr. Mike. I've learned a lot from him, and I agree with probably 90% of what he has to say. But there are some disagreements with the volume thing. And having trained with him 3 times now, um, he pushed me to failure every single workout.
hmm.
Uh, I never didn't go to failure when I trained with him. So, I mean, obviously that's also for the YouTube and everything, and you can say it's for the end of the mesocycle, which is great. But he works you good. So they do train very hard at RP. Um, I don't think it's 3 to 4 RAR for a lot
Yeah,
of sets. To be honest, it's pretty close to zero.
yeah, yeah. With Mike, it's tough to tell. Like Jeffrey had several videos, like Lyle McDonald had several videos, and like initially, like I was sort of saying like, but seriously, like how can Mike say that this is failure or even like close to failure? It seriously looks like this is like 4 reps in reserve. But the thing is that like Mike has actual videos from I don't know, like 15 years ago, from powerlifting competitions, um, where he like stands up with a heavy as like a loaded bar, obviously, um, and I mean that is supposed to be his like PR attempt. Like I don't
Mm,
think that he will like do that with 4 reps in reserve weights, right? And he still stands up like super fast, like it's just like I don't know
yeah.
a bit over a second. So he just doesn't do these slow grinders. Like it could really be that he's just that explosive that for him, like even failure looks like pretty explosive compared to most people.
Well, he did when I trained with him. He did mention that sometimes it just creeps up on you instantly. So I think because of that explosive cadence on the way up, you don't notice it as much. But if he would go for one more, then it would be a grind, probably past the midpoint. You
Mm,
know, and that's probably due to leverages on certain movements. But I would propose that if you use even more controlled tempo, like what he was doing with me, you're going to see those reps slow down, um, like even slower than if you're trying to be intentional because you're pushing to the max and you're grinding, you know. But that's what it is. If the rep speed doesn't slow down, then you're not close to failure because that's what it is. You know, it's Henneman's size principle,
yeah,
which hasn't been disputed.
yeah. No, for sure. And so then you these days you train like generally like you get that last rep that you still can, and then you like so will you miss reps like at any frequency?
Sometimes, like back in the day, I never miss reps. I would literally leave one in the tank. Now it's like I'm gonna go for it if I feel I can get it. But sometimes, you know, I'll miscalculate and I will fail. But I believe that I was able to do it. Now, if I know for a fact that I cannot do another rep, then I will stop the set right then and there. Especially if it's a big compound movement, you know, like you sometimes you just know that you hit failure, quote unquote. But that's taken a lot of trial and error, years of grinding and doing the max effort method. So I would say I'm 95% accurate at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's 0 to 1 basically everywhere. I never leave 2 reps in the tank, not anymore. I did for years, even last year. I was doing it, you know, 2 to 3 RAR, doing more sets, but not anymore. It's
Right,
either I can't do another rep or I actually failed, but it wasn't on purpose. It just crept up on me.
right.
But
um
you'll see every set I'm grinding. Always. If you go on my Instagram, it's all documented. If your reps don't look like mine, you're not training hard.
mm,
That's it. You're not.
right. Yeah, I mean I tend to agree. I will typically get that last rep that I can still get. And then, yeah, so like I will have phases where I'm like a bigger or smaller wuss. And then like I will go for like that really grindy,
Yeah,
like super slow rep. And sometimes I will like skip that. But yeah, like
that's right. You gotta be
Yeah.
ready for that.
Yeah, yeah. And you gotta be ambitious, I think, to do that, which I'm not always these days. Like I used to be like always super,
Yeah,
super dedicated to my training. I have
for
phases. Do you have
sure.
that ever?
Yeah, but I feel like I can't. I don't have the right to stop being dedicated. I don't have a choice because I film everything, and this is my job. It's my YouTube.
Yeah.
There's this constant pressure to perform. Even when I'm cutting, even when I'm losing strength, I'm still trying to give it my 100. So I don't think I'm able to stop, even if I wanted to. Mm, just by nature of being an influencer. Like in the
Mm.
last 2.5 years, I have filmed every workout that I've posted in B-roll form. I never not bring my camera either to the gym, to the park, and this home gym, always. So I have to give it my all.
Do you shoot videos every day of the week?
Yep, yep.
Wow.
But
So does that ever become burdensome to you?
extremely, the burnout is real, and I went for like an actual vacation overseas for the first time in, well, a long time. You know,
Mm.
but even that, you come back and you got to perform. You're back to reality. So it's been a 10-year grind, you could say, almost. In a month, it's going to be, no, not a month. In a week and a half, it's going to be 10 years. I've been doing this.
Mm.
And you've covered everything. I've made over 1,500 videos. You run out of ideas, or you're recycling content, but you're trying to phrase it in a different way. You're remastering it. You're being more careful with your words. You're trying to get the best angles. You're trying to look your best. There's an expectation that you have to improve, especially when you start getting known as the guy who broke the natty limit, you know,
Yeah.
like that. There's pressure to that, and people want to see you excelling. They want to see you doing better year after year. And social media is always evolving. YouTube is evolving, and there's a community now as well. So there's all these pressures, and the pressure you put on yourself as well is big. So it's not easy. I'm finding it to be harder the longer I do this,
Mm.
just because of that pressure. But I'm not gonna stop. I can't stop. I don't know what else to do. This is all I know.
You mentioned burnout. By the way, are you good with time or you
Yeah,
gotta
yeah, of
jump
course.
very
You?
soon?
No, no.
Cool, cool. So you mentioned burnout. How like did you have an actual time when you felt really burnt out? And if so, how did that look like?
Oh, it comes in phases. Um, I get it every couple months, I would say, or at least once a year. Um, the way I do it is just by, well, pressing on because you have no choice. But usually you'll see the content frequency is reduced. So you might be posting 1 or 2 videos a week instead of 3 or 4. That's the biggest sign. Or you're just less active on social media, but you never stop posting, even if you are burnt out. You have to, because or else you're going to become irrelevant.
Yeah,
And the algorithm will punish you. We're not
yeah,
allowed to take breaks as YouTubers. Even if you do go on vacation, you better have videos stored and ready to be uploaded at certain times. That's what I did, you know? So
yeah,
nobody's ever known that I've taken vacations or done anything. As far as YouTube land is concerned, you know, every day I've been, working to my full potential, but I haven't. There's some times where it's uploaded, way in advance, right? So as
yeah.
long as you're prepared, it's manageable. That's when you can take your little breaks, but the stuff has to be lined up, right? But the
Hmm.
biggest thing I found is learning. You have to be in a constant state of getting new information regarding your niche because that's what's going to unlock something in your brain to make a video.
Hmm.
So in 2020, I was starting to feel that burnout a bit. Actually, it was after certain global events, right? I'd done a lot of calisthenics content because people wanted that. And now
Yeah,
things were starting to return to normal. I'm like, okay, what do I talk now if it's not just pull ups and push ups and all that? And that's when I got into biomechanics. And it's actually how I discovered you.
oh,
You did certain interviews, and
yeah,
I watched those and it got me learning more. And
mm,
that got me into that whole world. I wanted to figure it out for myself. And that it unlocks the videos to criticize it or teach it, or
yeah,
implement it in your own way. And in my case, I was using it for calisthenics. So that's what I'm saying. If you're hungry for knowledge, you're always reading, you're always watching videos, you got to consider that work or an investment of some kind because it will
Right.
pay off at some point. As long as you don't slack off and just, okay, I'm just going to watch TV or movies or game all day. You can't do that. You got to pick something up and learn, and something will come to you. Just press on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is and so first of all, I agree completely that one of the best ways is to actually keep yourself interested. Like the hardest thing I think that a YouTuber content producer can face is when it's just old stuff being rehashed, which you don't find interesting yourself anymore. So like
Yeah.
any of us at any time could make a video about like how much protein do you need, right? Um
You get
you
fed up.
yeah, like you could be dead drunk, like waking up from your drunk dream. And it's like, hey, how much protein do we need? Do a video right now. There's the camera, and you could do it. But like you could just not be bothered to tell that again. Even though the funny thing is it could totally do well, a video like that. Because
The thing
there
is, it would go well, especially if it's been some time and you get new followers, right?
yeah.
But you're so fed up of covering it because for you, you've said it a million times, but to
Mm-hmm.
them, it's new. But you still have that mental blockade, you know?
Yes.
Like for me, I can't talk much about the conjugate system anymore. I've done it too much. I've talked about the max effort method for years, how you rotate overuse and all this stuff. I'm done with it. You
Yeah.
know, I know it by the back of my hand, and now would be the perfect position to make a remastered guide, but I don't want to. I want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about new stuff. So that's the secret to
Yeah.
being because fitness is repetitive as hell, man. So you got to
Oh,
find something
it
that's
it
oof,
is. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm so jealous sometimes when I'm looking at these channels that are talking about like sports, like you talk about the NBA, you talk about football.
Oh yeah, seriously.
It's like you never run out of content. You never run out
I'm
of content.
I'm
Um,
jealous of the gaming industry, well, the gaming channels
mm,
and the photography channels or the videography ones, because there's always new cameras to review,
oh
there's
yeah,
new technologies, new specs, and they do a damn good job. It's not repetitive content. Every year, I guarantee there's something new that you can learn from, and it's fascinating. But fitness, I can go back in time 10 years, and some of the information is quite similar. We've had our little moments of evolution, but it's mostly production value, I would say.
yeah,
And then the exercise science, you know, and yeah,
yeah. It's like for let's say for a camera channel, time is like multiplied by 10, let's say. So like a 1 year for them is like 10 years for us. Like in 10
yeah,
years, we might have a new concept that's like really new. For them, every year is at least is a new camera. Gamers as well, like most games come out like once per year. Although like there are like updates, of course, like throughout the year.
that's right.
Um,
Like there's news, there's things to talk about, you know,
yeah, yeah,
and in fitness, I mean, we can talk about what's going on in the industry, but is it really relevant? Are you learning anything? It's just
yeah.
drama, I suppose. So that's the issue with the other
That's
industries. You're actually learning something relevant to that field. Whereas with fitness, unless there's some breakthrough like that, you know, the meta regression we are talking about, that's cool stuff. I wish we learned about that 5 years ago,
yeah,
but we don't see that every week. It's usually just a bunch of junk stuff. So you
yes.
have those gems once in a while, and that's where you know see these awakenings.
Yeah. I mean, it's very clear to see in the research reviews. Like it's actually quite amazing that they managed to keep it going because there is just like so if we looked at I don't know, take I mean there are so many research reviews now, but like we could take the best one and we could see like collect in I don't know 10 years just the articles that actually introduced like something that could be like even remotely be considered like revolutionary or even just like really new and useful. Like those two things often don't go
Mm.
together. um how many would there be?
Mm.
Five at
Yeah,
best.
5 to 10 maybe in that range.
Ooh, 10 is pushing it, but
Even that's pushing it,
yeah.
and we're talking a whole bunch of studies,
Oh,
years documented.
oh yes.
So what does that say?
Yeah, and so it is tough. So and do you have some sort of like you just your muses like take care of that, or do you have like some system that like for content production in that way?
Oh, I mean, I wish I had a system. The only system I have is being consistent with filming everything. I need to make sure that I get the best possible clips. So, that my lights are always positioned the right way, that I have my camera set up correctly at the right angle. So with the filming aspect itself, I want to make sure that those clips count. I don't want to be having a bunch of junk content, especially with the lower volume way that I train now. And actually, one of the secrets is that I film with two cameras now,
Mm.
because now I can get 4 sets out of two, and that makes a
Yeah.
big difference when you're putting it on your timeline. And you can change the colors frequently with that, and even sync them up in a way that it looks like one longer set, but it's not. So that's
Yeah.
one little secret. Um, you know, being up to date with certain technological stuff. Like I'm subscribed to a lot of camera channels and all that. New audio interface, mic, new cameras, uh, learning more about color grading and editing techniques. So that's just the learning thing that I was telling you about. And batching your content, getting all your outlines ready beforehand, and you film them one shot. You get 6 or 7 of them done, boom, and then you edit all the talking head parts one shot, and then you do all the bigger edits. And
Mm.
now you're ahead. Then you can spend 1 week doing shorts only. So stuff like that. But the biggest thing I would say is just filming all the workouts and letting your brain just think, and staying
Yeah.
away from social media during your most productive hours. So
Mm.
don't just wake up and scroll for the first
Oh,
hour.
yes.
Like, have your coffee and get right into writing. Brainstorm, get your mind working. And the moment you have like a creative spark, you have to film that video right then and there,
Oh,
because
yeah.
that camera presence, you feel it. It's a vibe. Either you have it or you don't. Like, you can wake up feeling great to talk about a certain subject, and then 3 hours later, gun
You
to your
don't.
head, you can't make that video,
Yeah.
or you have to redo it the next day. So strike while you're hot, always. And
Yeah.
yeah, like, those are just, it's kind of instinct when you've been doing it for a long time. But
Yeah.
certainly there are, and you want to plan out your day. It's not just enough to have a to-do list. You got to know what you're going to do at certain hours of the day, just like a normal job, and you change, and certain hours is for this task. Don't try
Yeah.
to combine everything into one.
Yeah, they say that the morning hours are really good for writing and those sorts of things like creative work. Do you do
Oh yeah.
something like that in the mornings?
Yeah, I usually write in the morning, which is funny because when I was younger, it was the opposite.
Hmm.
Like, the books that I wrote were done at nighttime, but I've changed. I'm not able to work late at night. I have a very hard time. Past 10 o'clock, my brain just shuts off. I can do other kinds of things. I can edit. Editing could be anytime,
Yeah.
but doing like long creative writing, it's hard for me. The earlier the better, for sure. And
Right,
also
right.
the filming's got to be done earlier. I used to film videos at 9 o'clock. Most of the time, it's between 11 in the morning to 6 p.m. at the latest.
Hmm.
So you have a little window where you do those talking head segments.
Yeah. Do you like script those for yourself at all? Just curious because I
What do
I
you
used
think?
to
I'm curious.
what do I think that you're scripting them?
Yeah.
Um so that's the interesting thing because I've seen both from you where I could go either way. Like because I can remember back to specific videos that I've seen where like why is it like it was why you were talking about like why people who train like you don't get injured. I remember you were talking about like why is it that we following this don't get injured? Why is it that whatever? And
Yeah.
that sounded kind of scripted, but then there you had some of these like interjections and whatever like so like you can lift this and that many pounds. I mean for 5 reps at least. That's what I consider lifting. And then you continue like that sounded
Exactly.
very spontaneous, for example.
Mm.
So
Well, some of that is so I do both, right? Some of my videos are 100% scripted. Others are just the top of my head with an outline, right? And
mm,
then sometimes with the scripted videos, you have those interjections so that it has that flow, or you're just simply you're acting the interjection. You look away but you know what you're gonna say already.
Sure.
But
I don't know
what I
anything
found,
about that.
yeah, but what I'll tell you is that when you script a video, it'll come out perfect every single time. Those will be the best videos, right? And for very complicated topics, you probably should. However, they're extremely time consuming.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it probably takes triple the time. So you will spend all day writing a script, and they usually average between 2,500 and 3,500 words. But it's not like writing an essay because you want to do it in a way that gets delivered naturally, as if you're just, having a conversation, or else you lose the person, you lose that connection.
Yeah.
So there's an art to making it appear as if you're saying it normally, like in a speaking style, and
Sure.
that affects the word count, and trying to make it flow and everything. So I kind of want to get away from the scripting, to be honest, because of how time consuming it is, and I'd rather just bang out more videos and go harder on the edits. But you know, a bit of both
It's
definitely works. And for shorts, you kind of have to because you got 45, 60 seconds. So you got to be concise, and you kind of see how big the paragraph is.
so yeah. If I can give you some insight on that, because then at least in this one thing, I'm ahead of you a little bit, because I
Sure.
had the same exact mindset. Because I was scripting most of my videos, and it was very, very time consuming. Um, and then I also wanted to get away from that, and I did, and I'm glad that I did. But
Awesome.
what I learned is that like you sort of, so it depends on how good you are with like continuous speaking without making mistakes. If you're like NH and you can just be put in front of the camera,
He's
which
something else with
I
that.
would give both of my pinky fingers and my pinky toes for that skill.
Same here.
That would be phenomenal. Then it's a no-brainer. If you're like me, you're gonna be paying that time in the back end, because like you will be making so many mistakes while you're talking. Like for me, a video that's like 45 minutes, sometimes I'm not kidding, I will have like close to 3 hours of raw footage.
Wow.
So yeah, that might be
Well,
a bit of an extreme
no,
example,
but I
but
can understand.
at least double the time.
If I do a 20-minute video, I can promise you that it was at least 45 minutes.
Hmm.
That video I did responding to Jeffrey, I condensed it into 40 minutes, but it was over 2 hours.
Yeah.
When you see the timeline, it just cuts everywhere. So
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's
what I don't understand, and I've noticed it with some people who are gifted at this, they can talk as if it's one continuous essay, and they don't even have to do cuts.
yeah.
And it's long, and I just don't understand. I've been making videos for so long, and I don't have that ability.
Yeah. It's yeah. So I think it's just a matter of like it probably has to do with like how introverted and or extroverted the person is. Like some people are just
Yeah,
good at process, like thinking as they are talking. Like in a way, it's almost like multitasking a little bit. Like
true.
I I'm happy with the way I'm able to think, and as the end result is looking, I'm also happy with the way I'm able to talk. But how I'm
Yeah,
able to do those two things at the same time, not very happy with that at all.
I think you're pretty good though. I've seen a lot of your longer form content. I find it flows well, unless you're doing some special cuts that I'm not noticing. But I
Oh,
can
well,
see that it's
thanks. I just do what you do. Like I just cut out all the times that I
yeah,
fucked up, or when I was like, what did I actually want to say? Um, so I'm not a very smooth talker unedited. I should only be allowed to talk to people edited, if that was
I
possible
feel you on
somehow.
that. Oh yeah, especially
Yeah.
on podcasts, because everything is like one shot. So you got to
Oh
be
yeah.
careful what you say. And I often
Wait,
mess that up.
no, so when I'm watching back my podcast, I'm cringing at myself like crazy. Like I'm amazed by how slow I am. Like now I feel like I talk normally. Probably when
Yeah,
I when I watch this back, I will feel like I'm talking like this, like super slow.
yeah.
So
Well, with that, I find if you add cuts and then you put B-roll right where the cut is, they won't notice it. It's like
what's
when
the
you zoom in
B-roll?
on the audio, you get it closer to each other, but then you put footage on top so that it's seamless,
Ah,
and
yeah,
and you will
sure.
save. So on a 2 hour podcast, you can bring it down to an hour and a half if you get rid of all those mini breaks. It
Hmm.
becomes a lot more fast paced.
Oh yeah, sure. Um, by the way, do you know of Vegas? Is there a function to like zoom in or out or something at each time there's a jump cut? Um,
Yeah, it's usually just to scroll up and down, or on the side there's gonna be a plus and minus. You can either spread it out this way or that way, and you can see the exact waves, like very precise, just like Audacity.
but can that be like automated? Like so that like you make a jump cut, okay, there's gonna be some change in the like let's say you're filming with one camera and you want to
Mhm.
make it a bit you want to make it look a bit more professional with the jump cuts. You
Oh, like that. If you line up the video clips, yes, if you group it, if you highlight everything and then you press G, you can group all the clips into one. So every time you cut, uh, it'll affect the other one as well.
mm-hmm.
So you so just highlight it and then press G, and it'll all be
Oh
one
yeah.
track.
Yeah, of course. That's yeah. My God. I was thinking of like way too complicated things that I didn't think of. The
Sometimes the simplest solutions are the way.
yeah, yeah. Um all right, man. Like I feel like we should like slowly wrap up because like we went almost for two
we can
hours.
we can go on for yeah,
Um
but
yeah. But maybe I could get you back for follow up in the future.
oh, I'd love
And
that.
then we could talk about like I wanted to ask you about like your experience starving yourself down to contest level because I haven't gotten as lean as you, but I have starved a lot, and
Yeah,
I feel very strongly about the like what you said about like walking being the hardest thing. Like it's easier to lie down
it's
and
the
bench
truth.
225.
Yeah.
That I could so exactly relate to that, for example. So I definitely would want to talk about that as well, and
Mm.
yeah, some other stuff.
Yeah, well, I
So
definitely be game for another episode where we talk about nutrition and dieting strategies, being shredded versus bulked up. I think there's a lot of things we could talk about there based off both of our experiences. Because
yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like you've been leaner for much longer than I have. So
Uh,
there could be some serious dialogue there.
yeah, no, no, lots of stuff that we didn't cover here. But yeah, but anyway, I think this will be a fun episode. So maybe then
Yeah,
I'll just ask you to plug your stuff, and then we can even wrap up.
sure. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me on. Tons of fun. And I hope I wasn't too confusing for the
No.
viewers, because my brain tends to go all over the place. But anyway, guys can find me simply at alexleonidas.com, the Alex Leonidas YouTube channel. And on social media, it's always Alex Leonidas official. So I managed to secure that across everything. So it's very easy to find me. I'm one of the few guys with this name. And ultimately, I'm just here to help you fulfill your alpha destiny. Ah.
All right, Alex. Thanks a lot for being on. It was awesome chatting with you.
Awesome chatting with you too, Abel.